My Highland don't salute. My Highland don't salute. Please don't salute. My Highland don't salute. Remember your teachers, them now. Remember your nurses, them now. Remember your doctors, them now. My Highland don't salute. No, 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 no.
Hey, you're in tune to Roots FM 96.1 on the FM band. It's now time for Mecwi Talk Tuesdays with Jeffrey Tavares.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Thank you. Welcome to Mecwi Talk. I am Jeffrey Tavares, studio number 876-225-9478. My guest this morning is my good friend, brother, and the son of the soil for Jamaica. Come from Waterhouse, Wilfred Rattigan, former FBI agent, attorney at law. And I have a good friend from Trinidad, Dr. David Mohammed. He's the Eastern Caribbean representative of the Nation of Islam and the author of Black Study, Knowledge is Power, and Black Youth at Risk. This morning we're going to speak about Jamaica's gun amnesty. We're also going to talk about what is going on, because I saw a news clipping came in to me. 35 people were killed in Jamaica last week. One of the bloodiest 7 days in the start of 2022. The nation's death toll has risen to 1,329 as of November 5, 2022. One of the 19th Police Division, St. James, 181 people were gunned down. Westmoreland, 126. St. Catherine North, 124. St. Andrew South, 121. And St. Catherine South, 105. Now tell me something now. What is going on in this country? What is really going on in the land of wood and water? And also this morning, Mr. Rattigan, we have to unmute you. Also this morning, there's some news coming into me right now. We have to switch to that. There is some news coming into us. We have to switch to the news that is coming into us. This is Mecwi Talk breaking news. This is Mecwi Talk breaking news. The chairman of the Police Federation, Ron James, had a meeting with the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Nigel Clark, and obviously there was some heated exchange meeting. I think my good friend Wilfred Rattigan had some privilege of listening to it. We're going to play some excerpt of it, or excerpt of it, but to pronounce the word for me properly. I mean, we're going to play some from the meeting that was sent to us here.
Long-standing issue, they come.
Oh, that's the wrong one. I do apologize for that. That's the wrong one I'm playing there. But what we get to understand that the police want their money, and the Minister of Finance has this to say.
It does not place the minister and the government in a positive light, because what it does is paint the position of the minister, painting workers of this country in a discriminatory position. And for good reason, I would say that based on his utterances, is an inability to provide the resources and the remuneration. And as a result of inability, as a result of what they perceive and the resources. And this has led me to seriously review our state. And in his very own words, when we ask about the alignment of our members to a particular group, made it abundantly clear that we could never be placed in that category of persons because our training is not commensurate to what expended monies those other groups would have incurred in terms of having to borrow loan to be so accredited. And I cautioned the minister in that meeting, and I told him that he was at pains to point out that I could not caution him, and he went ahead and he uttered what he uttered. So much so that it's as if he's to deduce from what he has said that police officers are done and that we are not deserving of being compensated in the manner that we believe that the risk associated with the profession deserves. You have aligned yourself along that path, and we are working, placing our lives at risk even without the resources. Are you now saying to us that you have the resources and you are deliberate in your action and your effort to deprive us from being able to serve the citizenry of this country in the manner that you are? And he...
You know something? Let me not play anything for the interest of time. How on earth can you have a minister of finance who believes that the public money belongs to him and the administration to be telling the police in this country that they are a bunch of fools? Is that what he said? Huh? Because he doesn't want to give them the back money he has for them? We come on here this morning to speak about the gun amnesty and the crime that's taking over Jamaica. Now I hope the Jamaican people realize that this present administration refuse to fight the crime pandemic in this country. Wilfred Rattigan, what is your views on what you heard it yesterday or some other time? And I play it back to you today. What is your views on it, sir?
Well, first of all, Jeffrey, thank you very much for having me. Regards to Dr. Mohammed and your listening audience. And it's always a pleasure to share views on your program. Now, regarding what I heard yesterday, and I heard it live yesterday, and since then I've heard it twice. So I've heard it in total about 3 times. And it's abundantly clear to me that the government has no interest in addressing the crime problem as far as remunerating police officers are concerned. Now, keep in mind that a constable makes, what, 70,000 Jamaican dollars per month, which is equivalent of 400 and about, I don't know, 440 US dollars. And he has to pay all his bills, take care of all his responsibilities with that. Plus, if you look at the fact that they're very, very short on resources, no weapons, no vehicles, ballistic vests, helmets, pepper spray, collapsible baton, and most of all, they have no crime plan. And yet they're being told to go out and fight crime. And then you tell them that we're going to give you 4% raise. And that was, I think, was for like a year or 2. And then recently when they met with the minister and they said, look, you know, they started arguing for an increase in wages. They asked to be put in the category with nurses and teachers. And in fact, there's a report that said, that came out of, I forgot who did the report, essentially saying that nurses, teachers, and policemen should be in the same category as far as classifying salaries. The minister said he didn't agree, and so he's not going to do it. So they're going to remain, they're going to have low wages, continue to have low wages. And then we wonder when we have corruption, we wonder why is it that policemen are taking bribes, right? When they get, a meager amount of money for subsistence. I for the life of me, I just can't understand why is it that the crime rate is so high and the wages for policemen are so low. And you would think that the minister would at least his staff would inform him if he's ignorant of what's going on, that his staff would inform him that, look, these men and women, they deserve the increase.
But
and if you think about it, remember what he said. He said that it's not because they don't have the money. He said,
there you go.
Yeah, he said it's not because they don't have the money. It's just because they don't think that they don't feel, they don't believe that policemen should be in the same classification with nurses and teachers. So another sad day in the history of Jamaica for the JCF.
Dr. Mohammed, what is your views on what I just played and our good friend Sir Rattigan end up commenting on it, sir?
Well, of course, my analysis of this would be more broad and macroscopic as opposed to microscopic. In a nutshell, I didn't hear the clip too clearly. Okay. But I got the gist of it. And I understand the sentiments of, the concern over the growing crime problem all across the Caribbean. And I guess that's the first point that needs to be made, that all of these circumstances across the Caribbean are interconnected. It's almost like a domino effect from one nation rolling onto another next door. And we just so happen to be in a time period where the crime rates are going out of control. So Trinidad and Tobago right now is clearly headed towards their highest murder rate ever. As a matter of fact, we have this 2022 is the third highest year so far ever for murders, with almost 2 full months left to go. So that says a lot. But one thing I want to point out, though, from our beloved brother is in speaking about crime rates being high and police wages being low. This is 2 factors that go hand in hand with each other, because you have what I would refer to as a framework of criminal capitalism, where most people perceive possession of guns as for defensive purposes, as opposed to offensive or aggressive purposes. But gun laws in most countries arguably reflect the interests of the rich. Because many people would claim that they need a gun for protection or safety. I even saw in one of the Jamaican newspapers, it quoted someone who they refer to as a shotter, saying he needs his gun to survive, not that he's going to go out and attack people, but when those who have the intentions of attacking him approach him, that he must have his gun ready, again, to defend himself. But all of these societies, the gun laws reflect those who are in possession of significant amounts of land or capital or business, who normally have the freedom to get possession of legal firearms. And it is actually part of the broader framework of how that organized crime, white-collar crime, criminal empire works. You must ensure that the police have low salaries so that they can be seduced by the temptation of becoming complicit in organized crime. Because it's impossible for drug trafficking to take place in the way that it does. It's impossible for criminal syndicates or cartels to function in the way that they do without the illegal complicity of law enforcement. That's absolutely necessary, or else organized crime simply cannot prosper. So part of the plan is, from the broader point of view, to keep the salaries of the police officers as low as possible so that they will consider the alternative option of becoming corrupt. This isn't in one place or two places or three places. It is everywhere where capitalism and organized crime exist. It's a pattern. And it's only from time to time when we have these special reports or commissions of inquiry that such information is released, that you had some sergeant or some inspector or some assistant commissioner of police who have been involved in drug trafficking or kidnapping or gun running illegally. And then we tend to isolate the reality of those issues when it's all one huge matrix. So I'm not surprised by that situation. And it's not that the politicians themselves want to keep police salaries low. It's a broad web of an agenda, because the real decisions under our kind of system are largely influenced by party finances who influence the politicians, who influence the policy. So it's a recipe for chaos.
But Dr. Mohammed and Wilfred Rattigan, I heard in the same interview, the chairman of the Police Federation is saying that it seems as if that the security forces, our security guards in this country, security companies in this country, they're the one who the government prefer to fight crime in Jamaica. Wilfred Rattigan?
Yeah, I've heard that sentiment expressed, and there is some truth to it, because the industrial security apparatus or industry, they would suffer greatly if you start beefing up the police, not only with resources, but with personnel and technology. And then they start doing what they were originally intended to do, which is to fight crime, protect people, and reassure people concerning safety and security. Then there would be no need for some people to have private security guards. And therein lies a problem. And if you notice in Jamaica, a lot of these crime forums, they're put on by people involved in private industrial security, which is to generate business. Yeah, which is to generate business for them. You know, they come up with some flimsy thing about what the police should do or what the police shouldn't be doing. But they know, as the doctor said, they know how these things are financed. And they know it's just a show. And at the same time, it's also advertisement for their business. So the industrial security business in Jamaica, and I suspect across the Caribbean, is booming. And while that's booming, crime is escalating. But if you notice, where is crime escalating? It's not escalating in the uptown areas, in the areas where you have the influence. Exactly. Not in there, not where they reside. Crime is not escalating there. And a lot of them, they also have the middle class, upper middle class, and the rich people. They also have the industrial security apparatus behind them. So there is a modicum of truth to the fact that the industrial security people are involved in this to some degree, because if the police are allowed to do what they're supposed to do and given the resources, then they would lose some business. I agree.
Dr. Mohammed?
Yeah, exactly. That is the nail right there on the head, because private security firms who somehow seem to get this special child, golden child favoritism from government. Again, it's across the board, but these private security firms are part of the larger industrial commercial setup as money-making business enterprises. And they're given outrageously huge contractual opportunities. But these private security companies are not deputized to engage in investigations, apprehension of suspects, questioning or launching raids or searches and arrests. They have limited power. Their key objective is protection. So imagine you literally have an alternative police force that is exclusively dedicated towards protecting the persons and properties of the middle class and above, or above the middle class. And we have to question why so much emphasis is placed on the boosting of private security. It is almost as if there's some kind of fear or paranoia over the collapse of the national police force, to have this standby ready alternative police force to step in. And so the amounts of contracts and opportunities that are given by governments, we saw it during the pandemic. So when the pandemic first hit Trinidad, the government immediately hired 4 private security companies to patrol empty streets. Now, the one time that you don't need a whole lot of patrols, you hire 4 private companies to patrol at the time during a curfew, where if you see anyone on the street at all, it's someone running and hiding to get out of the view of the police. And that is, again, it's an existing phenomenon within our society that adds to the strain, the economic strain on the population in fighting crime. We should not even be having conversations about more money being paid to police officers at a time where there's a crisis statistically in crime. This should be given. It's literally an ongoing state of emergency without the suspension of the Constitution, where police salaries should even temporarily be doubled, or that some kind of incentive be given that if crime rates could drop below a specific demarcation point, that they are given some kind of compensation or reward or incentive in order to do so. But to ignore it at this stage is so detrimental. It could actually be adding to the problem rather than solving the problem.
And in the meantime, Jamaica, this is what it's not Jeffrey Tavares or Roots FM or Wilfred Rattigan or Dr. David Mohammed said this, It is in the Jamaica's newspaper, The Gleaner. 35 people were killed in Jamaica last week. One of the bloodiest 7 days since the start of the year.
You know what, Jeffrey? Sorry to interrupt you, but let me just add to what Dr. Mohammed just said about private security firms getting contracts, particularly during COVID. It has been reported that Jamaica received over $700 million to address COVID issues in loans. That sum came from IDB, World Bank, IMF, and UNICEF. And that money, and I've read the thing, that money was earmarked for vulnerable communities and businesses. Now, it would be interesting because there's no accounting. We don't know where the money went. It would be interesting to follow up on Dr. Mohammed's point to see whether or not the private security people benefited from this $700+ million. Something tells me that they did. I mean, I don't have the empirical evidence, but I'm hoping the government will come out at some point and say, okay, here's how the money was spent. Because guess what? And they should, because the monies I just mentioned to you, except for the UNICEF grant, IMF, IDB, and the World Bank, those were loans. So the Jamaican public must pay that money back. So the government has to account for that. They haven't accounted for it. So it's interesting, to follow up on Dr. Mohammed's point that these private people, they're benefiting going and coming, pandemic or not, they're benefiting.
And not only that, Sir Rattigan and Mohammed, we must ask the question of the Minister of National Insecurity and Injustice and Twiddly Dum Dum. Of all the money donor funds is given to the JCF, how is it that members of the JCF don't have ballistic vests, don't have uniforms, they don't have no vehicle? What is going on? They don't have no gun. And you're sending poor people, Pitney, out there to fight crime? And Minister Nigel Clark, who police protect him, his security forces, his security guards protect him.
Let's not forget, Jeffrey, and this is important for your audience to pay attention to. Let's not forget that in February of last year, the Minister of National Security, you call him something else, but I'll accord him his respect. But this same minister, he said that the government was prepared to spend and has been spending 1.2 billion US dollars, that's with a B, to fight crime in Jamaica. And he said they started spending this money fiscal year 2016, 2017, and that it was slated to end fiscal year 2022, 2023, right? And at the same time, just this year, when they met with Vice President Kamala Harris in the White House, she gave the ministry $10 million to address at-risk youths. And we have, and at the same time, the minister with his $1.2 billion, he was claiming that, we had to defer some of the funds for COVID. For what?
Hold on for
what?
me. Hold on
What
for
about
me.
the 750? And by the way, the 750 million, the 700 plus million I'm talking about, that amount does not include money and supplies coming from the United States,
Hold on for me, Will. Remember, we're going to say, Mr. Rattigan, we're going to take a quick commercial break here on Roots 96.1 FM. This is Make We Talk. We're speaking to Wilfred Rattigan, former FBI agent, Dr. David Mohammed, representative of the Nation of Islam from Trinidad and Tobago. Where Jamaica going? Are we sliding a slippery slope? Is Jamaica knocking behind Haiti's back door? We'll be right back.
Become the hero on the scene by taking the COVID vaccine. Get vaccinated as soon as you get all the facts. Don't listen to the rumors. This vaccine might just make it possible for teachers to sit face to face with schoolers. This vaccine make it safer for everybody, from the young to the elderly. Don't you want to go back to living normally when things were more orderly? And if you want to live a long good life, then we all have to do what's right. So let's get vaccinated along with the heroes on the front line.
A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Get the real inner city community news and be informed. You can do all that and more on City Beat, Monday to Friday at 12:45 p.m. on Roots 96.1 FM. City Beat puts you in the know and keeps you rocking in a world of knowledge. So let City Beat catch you on Roots 96.1 FM, Monday to Friday at 12:45 for City Beat. City Beat is a pulse of the city, so don't miss it. Monday to Friday at 12:45 p.m. on Roots 96.1 FM.
Backyard Magazine presents the Music Feel Reggae Show on Roots FM with Music Feel, DJ Sogi and SK. Every Wednesday, 5 p.m. till 6:30 p.m. This is the complete show where you get music updates, artist interviews and reviews. The Music Feel Reggae Show is brought to you by the legendary Backyard Magazine. Know your roots.
Hi, I'm Sharon.
Hi, I'm Marcia.
I'm Adrian. Join us this and every Wednesday morning for Extraordinary Abilities on Roots 96.1 FM. Join us for news, views, and interviews with extraordinary people. Extraordinary Abilities every Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on your extraordinary radio station, Roots 96.1 FM. It's gonna be fun, informative, and educational, but most of all, it will be extraordinary.
Welcome back to Make We Talk here on Roots 96.1 FM. We're speaking about Jamaica's crime pandemic. Well, actually, Jamaica's crime pandemic, gun amnesty. What the Minister of Finance just said to the chairman of the Federation that police officers are dunce. How dare you? And I know Ron James not lying. You believe that the taxpayers' money of this country belongs to you, Nigel Clark? And the People's National Party was in power, I would say the same thing about Peter Bondin too, if he was the Minister of National Security and Injustice. How dare you people You are giving poor people picnic baskets to carry water and protecting them at the same time. How dare you? Who the hell you think you is? The people of this country need proper security. The people of this country have suffered too much under the hands of gunmen that you all helped create. The gunmanism and the danmanism in this country. The two political parties in this country helped created it. Now it's out of whack. Can't come back. And how dare you refuse to pay the rank and the policemen and women of this country who put their life in danger every day. Now, don't get me wrong, you know. Because when police go on the antics, make chat about it too. Call a spade a spade. But you cannot have the government of the day describing the police officers as a bunch of dunce. What is this? North Korea? Is this Russia where Vladimir Putin is a dictator? And the policemen and women who go out there every day can't get a proper salary? You know, I don't have enough time. I hope Dr. Mohammed and my good friend Wilfred Rattigan can stay over after 12 o'clock to speak some more about this, because Roots FM, we don't have enough time on Roots. Somebody who can sponsor, make we talk. We need 3 hours per Roots.
You know, Jeffrey, it's funny that they don't want to pay the policemen, right? But I'm looking at the national security policy for Jamaica, right? It's a document that's a little bit over 100 pages. And some of the things that they expect the police to combat are it says here, to reduce violent crime and dismantle organized criminal networks, right? That's one.
And the biggest criminal, Jeffrey, shut him out.
And here's another one, to protect Jamaica from terrorism.
Protect Jamaica from what?
From terrorism. Here's another one, to protect and control Jamaica's territory. Planes are flying in and flying out. Boats are coming in and going out in an unfettered fashion, right? No controls. I remember that plane that crash landed off the coast of Jamaica, and to this day, nobody knows about the black box, the contents, and the passengers, except that the minister came out about 2 weeks after the incident to say that the people who were aboard the aircraft have left the island.
And not only that, Mr. Rattigan, the biggest drugs bust in the history of Jamaica of $1.something billion of cocaine was seized at an airport somewhere, and I won't call no name, in a St. Mary. And I know you hear nothing from the Minister of National Security, not the Commissioner's mouth. And they had a so-called press briefing, monthly press briefing. Now, Dr. Mohammed, in which modern democracy can this nonsense continue to happen, sir?
Well, I mean, it's known, it's understood that poorly paid police officers is both a symptom and precondition for a corrupt matrix of self-refueling organized crime problems. In order to have organized crime thrive, flourish, and prosper on a certain level, you must pay the police low salaries. And anyone who has studied any minor degree of criminology would know that. So therefore, to deliberately strangle the wages of police officers should raise suspicion about the motives of doing that. But I want to return to something that was said a little while ago by our brother Flanagan, who was speaking about the funding from the United States for us to deal with COVID. Now, I want to microscopically zoom in on that. And I don't know if it was an error or a mistake, I say this respectfully, on the part of Roots FM to to play an ad. Was that a current ad calling on people to get vaccinated still?
It was a current ad they had. It was a current ad they had. And I think,
all right.
I think the Ministry of Health still have that ad running.
So it wasn't a mistake.
No.
Okay, all right,
No.
all right. I'll leave that right there. But listen, September 22nd. I couldn't believe my ears, honestly. September 22nd, 2021. There was a global COVID-19 summit hosted by United States President Joe Biden. And there were a number of decisions that were made, which included an increased donation of vaccines, assisting in scaling up of vaccine manufacturing in other countries, and for the Caribbean, and this is what went over so many of our heads. This is Joe Biden here now to the Caribbean. He's saying, providing $300 million US. Let me just put a pause there. $300 million US, significant sum of money being given in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. But for what specifically? This $300 million US, according to Joe Biden himself, was granted to the Caribbean to tackle vaccine hesitancy. That means that $300 million is being spent not for equipment, not for facilities, not for technology, not for uniforms, not for medicines, not for treatment, but for propaganda. Because hesitancy is a caution or curious reluctance to not participate in something based on the information that you have and how skeptical it has made you. So $300 million US here is exclusively being set aside to target our minds and make us believe that there's salvation in the vaccination project, and to also censor, ban, remove content, ban material, curtail and silence people's voices, their opinions, views, and perspectives, even when there has been major information that came up about the COVID-19 vaccines. And then, listen, time revealed the truth to us organically. Because first they said, if you take the vaccine, you will not get infected. People took the vaccine, they did get infected. They said, you take the vaccine, you won't get sick. They took it, they got sick. You take the vaccine, you won't die. They took it and they died. So all of that proved to be wrong, but they spent $300 million US to change people's opinions about it. And it seems like y'all still have some of that money left over based on the ads I'm hearing.
but you know something, Dr. Mohammed and Wilfred Rattigan.
Yeah.
But as I said, we don't have enough time leaving roots. We're going to switch the conversation to gun amnesty.
Yes. Of
now,
course.
tell me something now. You and Wilfred Rattigan, especially Will, is more into the law enforcement. I'm going to ask you this question, Dr. Mohammed. Has a gun amnesty ever happened in Trinidad? And do you think it ever worked when countries ask for gun amnesty?
Right. So that's a very good question that, to me, I think needs to be thoroughly fleshed out and explored. There has been no gun amnesty in Trinidad and Tobago. And I could safely say ever, because the only time it would have been relevant would have been like the last 30 years or so, and there has not been one. I had called for a gun amnesty in Trinidad and Tobago about 20 years ago. And there have been conversations about it on occasion, every few years or so. It comes up as a topic, but it has never really been taken seriously. Now, most gun amnesties have not worked. Up to last month, there was one in Turks and Caicos, which did not bring in any guns at all. Many of them, China had one back in 2006, Australia had one, different parts of America and the states have had various gun amnesties. Now, most of them report failure. And the sad thing is, even when there's a small return of illegal arms and ammunition before the deadline, there are the critics who lament and say it was still a failure. But to me, if you get 3 or 4 or 5 illegal handguns off the street, that is still some degree of success, because it's possible that that could have contributed towards 3 or 4 or 5 less murders, and every one life is very important. But my main point on this is, but let me just make this main point about the gun amnesties, though, because I support them. I do support a gun amnesty. However, not in the way that they go about it. The police have a reputation in many of our communities and societies of extrajudicial executions of young Black men who often are proven to be innocent after the fact. So you cannot have the same law enforcement officers that are perceived to be corrupt and bloodthirsty in the community being the same poster boys to encourage young men to bring in illegal firearms, when in private social circles, a lot of these gang members have been betrayed by police officers who have gone corrupt but have remained in affiliation with gang members. You must have a broad, across-the-board approach that involves other agencies and social departments of society to combine their strengths, to appeal to the mass of the people through the schools, through the educational system, through the media, through cultural ambassadors and icons, various personalities, could be actors, singers, dancers, entertainers. You have to also get the politicians involved on the ground, grassroots, local government level, the councillors, the members of parliament. It has to be a united front of a coordinated approach that gets the message across that it is not only the police or the Ministry of National Security, I won't call it the same thing that you call it, that we cannot get a message across that it's only them who are calling for a gun amnesty. The whole country has to combine their voices for something like this, and that there will be some better results.
But Wilfred Rattigan, same question for you. How can Jamaica be calling for a gun amnesty, and at the same time our borders are not protected? And Dr. Mohammed touched a very important point, that the same way they go about the vaccine run up and down, because even the Prime Minister up and down, take the vaccine. Why the Prime Minister and the opposition leader now have a campaign against gun amnesty? Wilfred Rattigan?
Jeff, I don't know where to start, to be honest with you. Give me some guidance, because this law is fraught with so many issues that, I mean, we could spend an entire program just dealing with maybe one of the issues. You know what? Let me just start by telling you this, that the Minister of National Security in Jamaica, he did an interview recently, and he essentially said that he didn't expect real gunmen to turn in their weapons. Who did he expect to turn in their weapons? He said it was targeting people who had a permit, but for whatever reason they didn't renew the permit and the gun was still at home. Or if somebody's grandfather left an old relic, a 38 or a 20 or a Saturday night special, and the person had it in a closet in a drawer. Yeah, and the person didn't. He was saying we don't want to make criminals out of those people, so we're asking them to turn their weapons in. So he's considering those weapons to be illegal. Now, the real illegal weapons, the ones being used to slaughter people, he didn't. And this is what he stated. He didn't believe that the real gunmen would turn them in. But let me throw something out to you, Jeffrey. They said that they're giving it's a 2-week amnesty period. Oh, by the way, one of the things that the minister said was that initially said, hey, this amnesty is a good thing to fight crime. It's nonsense. But he said it's a good thing to fight crime. And they've had it successfully in places like Australia and South Africa. Wrong. And I'll tell you why. I lived and I worked in South Africa. I was in charge of the FBI office in Pretoria. I worked with the South African Police Service, and I can tell you that the amnesty that they're talking about is something completely different from what he's talking about. Their amnesty ran for 6 months and it failed. The one in Australia, that's a lifetime amnesty. There is no limit on it. They said anytime you can come in, you can turn your weapon in, and no questions asked. Let me ask you this, Jeffrey. I'm a gunman. I'm a shotter, and I've been contracted to kill somebody, and I'm on my way to go kill that person, right? And I get stopped within the next 2 weeks by the police. And I said to the police, hey, I'm on my way to turn in my gun. Should I be arrested? Possession of a firearm? See, it's not well thought out. It's not well thought out. You know, they come up, and the reason is because they're devoid of ideas. They have no ideas as how to fight crime. They've come up with Zozo. They've come up with state of emergency. They've come up with curfews. They've come up even with demolishing people's homes because they said gunmen live in the neighborhood, right? Now they come up with this nonsense. There's another one called Plan Secure Jamaica, the biggest farce as far as crime fighting is concerned in Jamaica. Right? So they're out of ideas. So they're struggling. They're dying. They're drowning. So they're gonna come up with anything. But I'm telling you that this gun amnesty program is nonsense. And by the way, I think as of yesterday, I think it started Friday, I'm being told. And I think as of yesterday, how many weapons have been turned in?
450,000.
This, zero.
Zero.
Yeah, zero. And they're not going to get any. They're not going to get any.
I'm trying to figure out, and you know, let me say this to my fellow Jamaicans out there. Let me not be cynical, or I love to criticize the government, yes. Now, if the PNP is in power, criticize them too. Because my gearbox smash up, it can't need to go 7 or 11. Forward nor backward. I'm neutral. I am neither PNP, nor a JLP, nor no P, nor UIE, nor NDM, nor never dare move. I am a Jamaican, and Jamaica come first. For me, labor pain bring me here, not aeroplane. Labor pain bring me here, not aeroplane. We the people in this country need to take a stand. Yes, the Prime Minister come out with gun amnesty, but somehow no citizen, I can start pound this morning too. You don't know the gunman them. Some of the young ladies, you don't know the gunman them. You don't wash gunman blood up clothes. And when you go rob poor Miss Matty and bring the money come, you go buy dirty girl. Tin mackerel if Dr. Muhammad no know. In Jamaica we call it dirty girl. But in the patois language, dirty girl. With dumpling and a cook on her boat. The time has come for us in this country. If we love Jamaica, don't depend on government alone. We the people must come together and say enough is enough to this crime pandemic in this country. Because
1,000% agreed with you, Brother Jeffrey.
Because, go ahead.
The thing with the gun amnesties is to raise the question about a gun amnesty. Let's say we do a survey in 12 different countries. It means different things to different people. Some of them have been very micro-focused on specific communities. And in America, I know in California, I believe also in Arizona, they would get boxes. I think people like Oscar De La Hoya and Julio Chavez and others to be the central figures around gun amnesties leading up to even like an event. Could be a celebration, Cinco de Mayo, or a boxing match that will draw thousands of people. Okay, you give incentives. In Samoa, back in 2015, they had a gun amnesty over there where they gave a 50 US voucher for the electricity company. So you hand in your gun, you get a $50 voucher that is redeemable for your energy bill. There have been discussions about guns for food because a lot of the illegal firearms that are in Trinidad and Tobago came from Venezuela. And some of them have unofficially been traded for food items that there have been a shortage of or that have been difficult to get in Caracas. So each of these communities, many of them have guns because they don't have something else that they need and that they think they can use the gun to get. So if they don't have money or don't have food or don't have resources, they have a gun instead that they can use as a criminal to get those things. So if there could be incentives added into the bigger picture of what the gun amnesty is proposing, and also that you get the other additional stakeholders, community persons, national icons, cultural heroes, to help promote it, and then I am seeing myself as being given some kind of reward that can benefit in the long run, some kind of investment, could be units, could be a bank account with a certain amount of money in it that cannot be touched for a certain amount of time, etc. And again, Brother Flanagan was speaking about South Africa, but both South Africa and Australia had, again, which is something that I think could be discussed too, these ongoing gun amnesty. So Jamaica is from, I think it's November 5th to or the 19th or so, 2 weeks. Right. We could explore the ongoing ones where there's open policy. Now, the question about if I'm on my way to hand in an illegal firearm and there are warrants out for my arrest and you bump into me, even on the doorstep of the police station, how do we deal with that? So all of these things, and then again, someone might be going out deliberately, intentionally to commit a crime with an illegal firearm and he's caught. He can make up a story on the spot and say, oh no, I was about to bring, or they could just take the gun out and say, here, this is for you, to the police officer and say, and I was on my way. So there's a lot of technicalities that have to be ironed out. But in the long run, when we look at it, we don't have much to lose regarding it. And to me, any gun off the street is one that could potentially save lives. But more importantly than this as well, we have to target the ideology of the young men who through the culture have been made to believe that being in possession of a firearm is somehow being in possession of some kind of power or force or strength or influence. By yielding to this sensationalization of weapons, we have to teach and train the minds of the young men to turn away and reject that kind of lifestyle as an option and turn towards education, being prosperous, pooling resources, opening businesses, becoming a young entrepreneur. And in the same way that we sensationalize having weapons, we could also sensationalize, with the assistance of the culture, owning a business, being self-sufficient, being independent, being someone who is a mentor to others, to give guidance. And so maybe there haven't been enough discussions on it, but I believe if we properly explore the various ways and manifestations within which this could be done, I'm certain there's some benefit in it at the end of the tunnel, eventually, soon.
You know, Dr. Mohammed, let me just say this, that the Jamaican government will not engage me because for lots of obvious reasons. I mean, I know too much. So they won't engage me. But I'll tell you what they should
have fight for all of them, sir.
Yeah, what they should do and what they should have done is they should have consulted with you regarding this amnesty program, because you're absolutely correct that amnesty means means different things to different people. Now, let's take the crime rate for the murder rate, for example. In Australia, I think it's 2 per 100,000, right? And they have an ongoing amnesty say, bring your guns in anytime. And guess what? They said, no questions asked, no prosecution, whatever, just bring your guns in and that's it. Now, South Africa is the murder rate is about 40 per 100,000. They had it for 6 months, it failed, it's abandoned. Jamaica's crime rate the murder rate is about 49 per 100,000, and they had it for only 2 weeks, right? So it's like
that's a very short period of time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you, and you also made another very good point when you said, look, tied to some benefit, right? Tied to some benefit, whether it's a light bill or whatever it is. But in Jamaica, you know, they want to tie. They were talking about a gun buyback program where they're going to pay up to I think $500,000 for an AK-47. Now we proved in various interviews that somebody could bring in 2 old rusty AK-47s and they would have enough money to buy about 4 brand new AK-47s. Yeah. And then also keep this in mind. The Jamaican Minister of National Security told the Jamaican public that, and this is conservative, he said that there were about 200 illegal guns coming into the country per month. Per month. And then you combine that with the fact that they have about 150 illegal points of entry. And you say, well, wait a minute, where is the focus? Now, I agree with you that you should have some amnesty, but is that the top priority? What about your border control? You know, so I think what they should do is they should listen to you carefully. They should hire you, sir. They should have you explain to them what it means to have an amnesty and how the and thoughts that should revolve around implementing an amnesty. Because what happened is that this was just a knee-jerk reaction. Because what happened is, I don't know if you're aware of it, that they did a recent poll, and approximately 93% of those polled said that they had no faith or confidence, little to no faith or confidence in the police commissioner and the Minister of National Security. And guess what? They're still on the job. They're still on the job.
But Mr. Rattigan, do you believe that the powers may be would employ Dr. Mohammed? He's in the company of a Jeffrey Tavares and a Wilfred Rattigan?
Well, now he's tainted. Now he's tainted. No, but they really should. They really should. No, he brought up some good points. They really should at least, talk to him, because I know they won't talk to me, but they should talk to him about, at the very least, about this amnesty thing. How do you set it up? What are the thoughts and the considerations that should go into it? What are the parameters? What are the exceptions? They should talk to him about it, because obviously they don't know. They don't know anything about this. They don't.
So
just to add, the first point that I'd made for the session, in that there's a high degree of interconnectivity between different Caribbean nations when it comes to the gun problem. And we mentioned that a lot of guns that come into Trinidad come from Venezuela. But the guns, there's a significant quantity of illegal guns that leave Trinidad. And the number one destination is Jamaica. So 45%, this is according to the United Nations Organized Crime Report of 2015, right? They pointed out that with all these illegal firearms coming into Trinidad, 45% of those that are exported go to Jamaica. 40% go to Guyana, 10% go to St. Lucia, 5% go to St. Vincent. Now, when we, from our vantage point, study organized crime in St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Guyana, and Jamaica, there are connections with Trinidad. And there's a likelihood that there are a number of illegal firearms that leave Jamaica and would go to places like the Bahamas or even Turks and Caicos, where they decided to have their amnesty the other day. So no guns will go from Trinidad all the way up to Turks and Caicos, but they'll go to Jamaica and end up in Bahamas and Turks and Caicos. So it's a whole web. But if each of us are looking at these countries in an isolated context exclusively and not see those connections that take place, and remember as well, there are a lot of businesses now. You see, I mean, I don't want to implicate the phone companies, but say, for example, like the phone companies, you see the logo in one place You see it in 15, 20 other Caribbean territories. And there are certain supermarket chains, there are certain utility companies, there are certain furniture and electronic stores that now have these region-wide brands who are also linked to money laundering and drug trafficking. And by having that inter-regional commercial existence, it gives some degree of license or leeway to import and export at will without any major degree of scrutiny. So that is when it's the above the law level. And so I think sometimes the state might only look at it on terms of who's on the street corner or who's in the gang living in the ghetto who goes out on the block and does a drive-by shooting. And once we continue to narrow-mindedly look exclusively at those small dimensions and ignore the macro picture which combines the entire Caribbean region and America and South America, Venezuela, Colombia, where some of the cocaine comes through, if we ignore all of that, we're in trouble.
We're in trouble.
I'm so sorry. It is 8 minutes after the 12 o'clock.
Hold on, Miss Isis. Hold on, please.
Yeah, we're out of time.
But I came on at 11:15.
Yeah, but you remember we do have certain obligations to our Muspa songs, and so we have to go to them. All right.
Greetings, Sister Isis.
Hey, Dr. Mohammed, how you doing? Good to hear you.
I'm good. Good to hear you too. Good to hear you too. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed. Can you all stay on for me?
Okay, yeah, I got about 20 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. So do I, because I have to get ready for my thing tonight.
Okay. Just give me your final words on this, and then, we can wrap up. Dr. Mohammed.
Okay. Now, I remember making a comment, quite a few comments during the pandemic about how Caribbean governments seem to pick up really bad ideas from each other. And that was regarding how the lockdowns were conducted, how the restriction on human rights and civil rights were undertaken, the forcing of vaccination, all of those issues. So you see it in one Caribbean nation, and then all of a sudden another Caribbean nation shows up doing the same thing. We take bad ideas from each other, but we can also take good ideas from each other. And there are certain good ideas that I believe, if there's sufficient collaboration on the heads of government CARICOM level and among the interministerial forums within national security, and the bringing in of the properly trained and knowledgeable stakeholders. I mean, there are societies, would take someone like Mr. Flanagan, who has that kind of experience and expertise outside of the country. He must be part of a think tank. Politics, and this is in the social studies textbook for CXC and CSEC, it says that one of the main reasons that very potentially powerful CARICOM initiatives are never brought into fruition is because of the revolving door of governments being voted in and voted out, oppositions being voted in and then voted back out, and the new governments never respect nor make it a priority to properly launch and establish previous plans of governments that went before them. So for the sake of their own personal legacy and ego, they keep starting over, trying to reinvent the wheel. The reparations plan for slavery is the perfect example. That was 8 years ago. We are in the midst of the Decade for People of African Descent as designated by the United Nations. We have 2 years left. And many of these governments, to the best of my knowledge right now, there's only one government that is still in office today that was there 8 years ago, and that's the government of Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. All of the other governments have changed. So therefore, they're not interested in continuing with an earlier initiative that was launched by their opponents for fear that their rivals get the credit instead of them. No, they will be more interested in trying to reinvent something new from scratch. So when it comes to initiatives like this, there has to be some kind of policy for consistency and continuation so we can start these discussions and continue to build on these discussions without abandoning them. And the intelligence that is required to collaborate across the region will help a whole lot more than any individual regime can help by themselves, especially if there are these 5-year expiry terms on these kinds of social problems. So I am calling for a greater CARICOM, intercooperation and interconnectivity, and that we also remain hopeful. I mean, last week on my radio program in Trinidad, I started off calling on the country to not allow ourselves to be defeated by pessimism, that it is possible for us to combine our strengths and combat the evils. It's possible that it is temporary and not permanent. But if we lose hope, then that ourselves is like participating in the crime problems. We must remain focused. We must believe. We must remain optimistic. We have to have the maturity to put aside our political and religious and ideological and social class differences, because that is the only way that we can overcome this current scourge that we're in.
Wilfred Rattigan, your final word, sir.
Yes. Just to follow up on the doctor's point regarding ideas, about adopting ideas, far too often we see in the Caribbean, specifically Jamaica, where they will copy, adopt, take an idea from a first world country and try to shoehorn it into Jamaica without taking into consideration the Jamaican experience to say, will this work or won't it work, right? For example, and I know this because I witnessed it, they sent policemen to New York City to examine, explore, observe NYPD's ComStat procedure, which is a way that it's a way to hold managers responsible for crime being committed in their precincts. Now, they spent taxpayers' money and sent people to New York to examine this and to bring back this idea to Jamaica. It didn't work because guess what? There's a whole apparatus before you can actually implement this thing in. You cannot implement it by itself like that. There's a whole apparatus that goes along with this. Jamaica doesn't have that. So they wasted funds doing that. Just like with this amnesty thing. Amnesty in and of itself is not a bad idea, but the way it's being implemented in Jamaica is a bad idea, very bad idea. And on top of the fact that they have a whole host of criminal priority issues that they should be dealing with. And then to come to this, it's almost like they're just descending, they're plunging into failure or continued failure. And so my call is for them to reach out to people like Dr. Muhammad and seek his advice and his counsel, because they really don't know what they're doing. And if you read the paper that they put out, if you go to the website, or you're able to, contact one of have a source within the department and have them give you the documentation, you will notice that the documents are well written, well drafted, but then you ask one simple question: how has it been implemented? How has it been implemented? And the answer is there's no implementation. So now what we're left with a police force that's required to implement a whole range of foolishness as far as crime initiatives are concerned. And they're not being given resources and they're undermanned. So what does this bode for Jamaica? And by extension, the Caribbean? Doesn't bode well. And like the good doctor said, 45% of the weapons coming from Trinidad, they're being exported to Jamaica, right? And we hear time and time again, I tell you how lazy these law enforcement professionals are in Jamaica. how lazy and ignorant they are. They keep saying, oh, the weapons are coming from America. The weapons are coming from America. And I keep saying to them, no, no, no. The weapons are made in America. But can you prove to me that they're coming from America? Because they're coming from Haiti. Now we know that they're coming from Trinidad, and they could be coming from elsewhere. Also, if you recall, there was a big press event about the mayor of New York City promising to assist the Jamaican government regarding drug smuggling and importation of illegal firearms. Ask yourself the question, what's the follow-up? Where's the follow-up? No follow-up. These people are all about optics and press conferences. And then when, like I said, when you ask them, where are the results? Where is the implementation? They can't talk to you, Jeffrey. So Jamaica is not in a good space. And I trust and I hope that at some point they'll realize that, and they'll start reaching out to people like Dr. Mohammed. They don't need to reach out to me, because I will forever be a critic. And of all the parties, not just one, but whoever is in power. That's my passion in life now. I'm retired, I'm practicing law, and I'm doing it at my own leisure. So that's my passion in life right now, is to hold the government accountable, because the last time I checked, Jamaica is still a democracy.
Thank you very much. Wilfred Rattigan, former FBI agent. Dr. David Mohammed, representative of the Nation of Islam. You know, we had a very robust discussion until I was really interrupted, but let's not get into that part. I apologize to my viewers who are listening or watching us, and those listening to us. I must apologize for the rude, obnoxious behavior of an individual, but let's not get into that part. This morning, we're talking about Jamaica's gun amnesty and our crime situation in our country. Let us come together as one people and deal with this. Until you hear my voice again, like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I am Jeffrey Tavares saying thank you all. Thank you, Dr. David Mohammed. Thank you, Wilfred Rattigan. God bless you all.
Thank you so much.